If you haven't signed in yet, please do, and we'll go through and make sure we get your introduction. I threw the thing in the chat.
Hey, yes, a lot of you would know me as Patricia Ray's dad, and I help I'm sometimes lab assistant, and I help manage the reagent and supplies for the lab. She's multitasking right now. She's on the open yeast workshop and will be here, but she armed me with some questions in case she doesn't get to ask them.
Gerardo, I'm sorry, I'm probably butchering your name, but please correct me.
Yes, don't worry. My name is Gerardo, and I'm a biology student in Mexico City, actually. I'm located at Michoacan. I'm part of a startup that is called Synthetic Biobots. We're working with solving problems, local problems with synthetic biology. We participated in IGEM Design Lake this year. I'm so interested in solving this kind of problem with synthetic biology. I'm so into bioinformatics, all that is synthetic biology, genomics, all that kind of things. And we are also so interested in like the democratization of science, because in Mexico we have this problem that there are a lot of communities in the place I live that don't have access to the basic knowledge. So we're trying to implement this like science diffusion, divulgation, in order to make this knowledge accessible, at least at a certain level, to all these communities. So we're also so focusing on that. And that's one of our main goals.
Love it. Sahib.
Hi. Hi, I'm Sahib. I'm also having camera problems. I am a high school intern at Counterculture Labs, and I currently work with Mr. Dobbs on the BioArtBot project. And I am currently in the process of building CCL's first bioprinter.
It's awesome. Wendy.
Hi, I'm Wendy Pliot from Boss Lab, and we're doing a lot of exciting programming this year. We're really focusing on building our own internal programming, but we're always looking to collaborate. We are also trying to get a bioprinter up and running, so we should probably talk with not a lot of success. So it would be great to get some tips. But we've got some exciting stuff. I think a new thing that I'd like to share, that we're starting an entrepreneur club, because we do, as if you saw John and Wassel's talk, we have a good percentage of our members who actually are entrepreneurs. And so I think that will be fun and exciting. And we're hoping, if you want to learn more about it, and please reach out to me. We would love to hear if someone's doing it at their community lab. But if not, hopefully next year we'll present that whole track of how we're developing that out. So thank you.
Thank you. Let's see, where was I? Will,
can I just add something in real quick?
Yeah, absolutely.
Lots of people are putting notes different places in the notes document. For the add to community lab organizers list column, that's not really a place for you to add descriptions of yourself, because that's where we're going to be figuring out how to add to that list. I'm putting a list of everyone introducing themselves at the bottom. If you want to elaborate on yourself, feel free to do that at the bottom, but that way we're doing it in the same place instead of having multiple different things happening in different places.
Yeah, sorry, I added that column and didn't label it very well. There's a mailing list if
yes
you
or
are.
No answer. So just check it if you want to be added to that, and then don't put an essay there. Thanks.
Thank you. Will.
You guys can hear me? Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, so my name's Will. Let's see, I'm actually a native Bostonian, and I'm in Ottawa, Canada now. I did my PhD with the Silk Lab at Tufts, with Kaplan Silk Lab, and right now I'm working with Pelling's lab in cellulose biomaterials. So I'm very much like a biomaterials person. It's you know, kind of a stranger in a strange land, being an American in Canada. And so I'm working. My wife is actually a former media labber, and we're trying to kind of set up some spaces and those kind of things up in Canada. And yeah, I'm really interested in all the kind of technical aspects of things. And I scrounged some equipment from Tufts that I still have to get across the border, but we'll see how my smuggling operation goes. And that's kind of it for me. Still fairly new to the community. I did last year, but have to kind of get more involved in, contributing to the community and those kind of things.
Welcome. Let's see, Corinne.
Hi, everyone. I'm just going to put it in the chat so we can move faster. Sorry. I'll go ahead and do it right now.
All right. Robin. Robin? Nope. How about James?
Hello, everyone. My name is James. I'm a biomedical engineer. My concentration was tissue engineering. I got my iron in a lot of fires right now. I'm the web developer helping out at DIYbio.org. I'm also helping out with Biohack Philly, and I'm also doing a startup for a biocomputer that does synthetic biology. So thanks, everyone.
There's a bunch of people in the room who aren't on the list. You are welcome to join in. I know some people feel like they're lurkers here, but we welcome Brian, Anand, Quinn. Looks like Abraham is joining us. Abraham, we're just doing some introductions, saying what we're interested in and where we're located and all that. And there's a notes document I just popped in there if you want to sign in. Does anybody else want to go? All right. Would someone like to give an update on what has been happening with North America regionals?
I nominate Andy.
All right. Now you get to note take and talk at the same time in a challenge of brain power.
I'll take over the notes. I'll take over the notes.
Okay. Over the last year, one of the things that came out of the regionals meeting was that we needed to really work on an update of the DIY biosphere, the website, and trying to figure out how to build a better online presence so that we can start connecting labs, sharing resources. And I have to really just give a lot of credit to James, who's on this call, for helping really take a lot of the feedback from that committee. But the committee that's been working on it has stalled because there have been a lot of different ideas and directions that it has been pulled in. And then we started to get into contact with one of the groups of makers. Alex, do you remember the name of that group? And I can't remember off the top of my head. And I know Beth has been connecting us with them.
Nation of Makers.
The Nation of Makers. Sorry, I'm trying to blank them out because they named themselves NOM, but all I can think of is the group that was fighting gay marriage in California, and I get angry. But they are not bad people. They're makers, and they're trying to add us into the list of maker spaces across the country. And so we're starting to have this struggle of figuring out how to make sure that the DIY biosphere is still something that is useful and can be a good resource for everyone, but at the same time is not competing with the Nation of Makers map and list of the different labs. And so it's been trying to juggle a couple of things at this point, but we would love people on both fronts to really help out on this, trying to figure out how we can make sure that DIY biosphere is something that is useful for us, and it's at the same time not a competitor, and it's still working in tandem with the Nation of Makers map and list of these different spaces across the country. I know the Nation of Makers is also interested in getting information from us about what information we want listed in terms of if they make this map and include biospaces, what does community bio look like and what do they need on the map from us? Is it equipment? Is it expertise? Is it projects? What do we want to put on that map if they fold it into that larger makerspaces map? And that was really quick. So if anyone else from that panel wants to add in anything, I'll hop back into the notes document.
Can I just add something really quickly? I think one of the bigger questions is kind of like, if we're not going to redouble efforts with Nation of Makers, which we love their map, love, like, we don't need to make our own map. They can only just be one map. That's fine. Like, let's all share the map. How do we make sure that, you know, if folks are looking for biolabs, that, you know, we set up the right kind of criteria, that we like label ourselves in the map, but that also we have like shared ownership of the map. So the Nation of Makers has been very clear that, like, yes, that's given and they want us to do that. Um, and so I guess the question was, like, how much ownership do we want? Are we fine with just like giving them a bunch of data and like slapping a logo on the map, like the DIY Bio logo or a Bio Summit logo, and then just like leaving it at that? Or do we want to set up like a liaison that is the person or people or group that helps Nation of Makers with the map? So that's sort of, those are questions.
There's also other things that we would love to have in a map that Nation of Makers doesn't necessarily want to clutter their map with. It's like they probably have like which hackerspaces have a laser cutter. We would love to have which labs have like specific plasmids in their freezer, right? We don't want to have a giant table in Nation of Makers map to collect that information. We need a separate place for that.
That is actually something the Nation of Makers was talking about. What they're asking us right now, what information we want to share with them and what their list needs to have. And so that is something that we can suggest. And it might be as simple as providing a spreadsheet or a living spreadsheet that different labs have, and we can attach to the spaces that we're providing them. But we need to figure out what we're asking them to provide for users on that site.
Yes, I think there's like the external side of like, how do people find, you know, our communities? How do they get connected if they're in the region? But I think like one of the things that we talked about in the last regional summit, back in the last Bio Summit, is kind of how can we better work together? How can we build like, you know, stronger bonds and more interconnection between our labs? So I think that's kind of like still an open question. There was a website that people were floating around. I don't know the specifics, but I just wanted to like bring it up of like, I know there was talk of a website of like, you know, how can we share protocols and whatnot. But yeah, if anyone else here wants to chime in on that, then jump in. Yeah, there are many directions, Andy.
Orlando, you have your hand up. Jump on in.
Yeah, hopefully my microphone works now. I just wanted to feel free to this might be like not a concern for anyone else, and like personally it isn't for me, but I wanted to flag up like a reason why it might really be worth keeping this separate website, separate, potentially, maybe if it's not necessarily just like maybe the map is shared with Nation of Makers, but we keep some separate online identity. Is just like been working a lot with kind of academics studying DIY bio, so thinking more about like how do people who are outside of the community view it. And there's a lot of people who anyway already just assume that DIY bio is just this subset of the broader maker community, and that community labs are just a certain type of makerspace, which I don't necessarily think is like wrong in a lot of ways. But that like often, you know, in papers, the existence of this DIYbio.org or DIY Biosphere website is seen as this proof of the material reality of something called the DIY bio movement, and it kind of like is proof of the existence of there being a separate movement that has its own not just spaces but kind of ideals and visions and goals. And that could be why like maintaining some sort of website like that could be worthwhile, even if it's a bit of like extra work.
Alex, just jump in. You don't need to wait
Sorry,
for me to call you.
I'm so sorry that wasn't clear. We are not like, just the conversation is less about sharing or like getting rid of our website, because yes, we want to keep the DIY bio website. We want to like differentiate ourselves from the makers, but because there's so much overlap and because making maps is hard and annoying, they already have a map and they want us to be on their map, and we're like, great, now we don't have to build a map, now we can just make a website that's better. And so what we want to do is update the DIYbio.org website, because while it's like critical that there is a website, right now the one we have is like dysfunctional and old. And so the discussion is really about like, how do we make a new one that's better?
We have been dealing with a lot of problems with the old site that we have. The problem is that there's not a consensus on a lot of issues of how we deal with the problems as well. There is this really big problem with ghosts in our community. I know that at least here in the Midwest, we are a littered graveyard of community biolabs that were around for 2 or 3 years and then went away, but they're still on that sphere. And so I know there are some 2 or 3 months that because we don't have a physical space and we've been trying to figure out things, Chi-Town Bio is not up to date all the time on our website or on our blogs or on social media. And so we need to have a really clear way to be able to sense from the community who's still there, who went away, who is still working on stuff, who's in a temporary stasis. And so we have really struggled with trying to figure out how to update the maps that we have, which were built with a lot of care and thought, but we're at a different stage of the growth of this movement in the United States. And so we want to update a lot of this on the sphere. We want to make sure that we can put this also in the makerspace. Or the Nation of Makers site. It's sorting out a lot of the minutia of how we update and make sure that our presence on the internet is evolving so that people in Ohio don't look for Capital Labs in Columbus, which shut down in 2018, even though that's still on our site. So it's trying to figure out this balance of making sure things are up to date, but not letting things that just go into a slight stasis be completely forgotten.
I feel like in the place where we ended up with right before the map question was raised was we were debating 2 camps, whether we should have WordPress or GitHub. That's where we landed, which it was predictable.
Jessica, can I add? Yeah, I'm wondering, I think this is a great opportunity. One of our goals is to have greater access and reach to broader communities. Why not be on this map? And I think it's okay to be framed within the broader maker movement, but also be framed as different, like we're part of this ecosystem. So if we had an identifying icon that people could see, and then our labs are identified on that existing map with that icon, and then what other resources we have shared on that. So maybe I'm wondering, like, just if we decide, if we are included on this map, it doesn't preclude us at all for having, our own website and all that, but maybe we could just decide an actionable thing today is, do we want to be on this map? And if we are, I think Patrick was saying that, we would have an identifying icon and just at least have that as a takeaway. And then next, maybe we could talk about, like, what is the content that we put on that on Nation of Makers. I think we heard lesson plans and some other things. So, and once we build out that content, that can also live on our own site, whatever platform that might be. But this might be an opportunity to push out content in some framework that we can duplicate, right, parallel path into our own site when whatever platform we end up on our own site. But it seems like a great opportunity to me to be included on this. I just know that, like, to engage teachers in K-12 and, like, get into more communities, this is a great vehicle for doing it. People know about makerspaces. They're in their schools, they're in their libraries. It has state and federal funding. Libraries get special funding for, building out makerspaces, and that's another funding pathway. If we're included within this framework, we all of a sudden have access to this different funding path, and that is library and school, federal, state, specifically for just libraries or for education. So we're kind of like riding on those coattails.
So having not attended any of these, is there any opposition to being on the map?
I think where we left it was that we were generally pro-map. It's just trying to figure out we're pro-map. We're just trying to figure out what needs to be on our site and what do we need to have on theirs. And then making sure that we have resources that we are providing to each other that is going to be consistent. And at the same time, we are part of this larger community, leveraging the Nation of Makers resources and network in order to better promote our own purposes and then help with their purpose of actually connecting people with the maker spaces they want to be at.
All right. Do we have, what's the process for determining what needs to be on there? Do we have lists already? Do we have I'm trying to catch up here, but I think there's probably a lot of people who don't know these things.
Yeah, we have been going to, they've invited a bunch of people who are working on the Sphere project to help start with their feedback on making this map. And so it has been pretty inconsistent just because there are a lot of people pushing back and forth on this. We have had a couple meetings with them. What's been really nice is Beth Tuck from GenSpace has been really great at coordinating between the community biolabs and NOM, just trying to make sure that we have connections. What has been tricky is that I don't think there is a centralized person or group to talk to. And so I think probably all of us on those groups have been getting different messages from different people at NOM, and different people have been connected and talked to by NOM. And so it would be great to actually have a clear and organized committee so that we would have a group of people to work with on that. But I don't also want to offer that up here and then neglect the people who have been working on the Sphere. It's just gotten pretty chaotic in the last, probably, Alex, did you say 2 or 3 months? Yeah, so maybe this would be a great time to find some people to help work on that. I will leave my contact information at the bottom of this. We can try to organize something from there too.
I think it's also, oh, sorry, Jessica, go ahead.
I was just going to say what you said in the chat, so say it.
Oh, I was just going to say, I think it's also because this is our like annual sort of big meeting. It's a good time to like just reorg. Who wants to be on the committee? Do we want to like, it feels like everyone here is okay with moving forward, but maybe we just do like a hand raise sort of situation. And then if you want to join the committee, join the committee.
All right, so the thing is, raise your hand if you are okay with going forward with the mapping. Either like actually raise your hand or do your virtual hand thing.
It might actually be easier to find out who doesn't.
I was just going to do that. How about if you don't want it, put the thumbs down?
Is there a thumbs down? Oh, okay.
That seems like consensus to me.
Yes, we have 0 thumbs down. All right, awesome.
Cool. So, and then, yeah, we basically have a very disorganized email chain. And like, this is basically our usual meeting for like quarterly North American regional group. And then we have like a website meeting with a email chain that's completely dysfunctional. So if you want to be in the committee, like, maybe
awesome.
just let us know.
Would like to invite more chaos into your life.
Yeah.
Wendy, you have your hand raised. Okay. Sorry. Let's see here. All right. So when is the next North American regional meeting and how do you get involved in that? No? None? Oh, we get to decide a date right now. Okay. I thought they were happening quarterly.
I think somebody needs to organize one.
Okay. Who wants to organize one?
I was going to say, so the goal here is that they were supposed to happen quarterly. I think we managed two of them, maybe 2.5 sort of, and then they fell off. So now it's time to get that momentum back and get the next one organized. I'd recommend like 3 months out from now and have at least 2 or 3 people step up to organize it. That way, if people get busy, there's more of you to spread the work. And pick the date now.
What? James has his hand up, but then I'll say something after him. Because
3 months would be February 21st.
Just we have that spreadsheet that we all signed up for our introduction. What if we use that for like a when to meet moving forward? Is that something that, because I mean,
an excellent idea. Yeah,
we can just send that out. You know, we could probably agree on some kind of day of the week and just say, here are the days, here's every Friday from now until the next 3 months.
Yeah, I'd narrow it down a bit more, you know, give people maybe an option of like a 2-week range, maybe 3 months from now. Don't do every weekend from now till forever, because that'll be unwieldy. The other thing I would recommend, and I'm only, again, a third in right now, so excuse my incoherence, is that one of the things we need to do is get better about reaching out to the other groups. So there is the network of North American operators, there's the DIY bio list, et cetera. And one of the things I really would like to see us pull those groups in, because BioSummit becomes us talking to each other. And we need to be pulling the greater North American regions in. So making an effort once we get that date to really say, okay, who's going to reach out to which group, and who's going to get this on social media, and who's going to make sure that we really get the word out to these different groups in Canada and across North America. And one thing we meant to do last year, and they wanted it, is we need to reach out to Mexico. So Mexico would like to be included in the discussions. There's actually quite a few people right now in this year, right now in the Latin American meeting, but they want to actually start coming to the North Americans meetings too, because there's some crossover there. So those kind of points would be great. And not it, I called it first.
I call not it second. One other thing that last time we had kind of agreed on for this meeting system that kind of fell apart, and I don't know when, so there's no one to really figure out who to blame, was the idea that what we would do is we would contact people who have organized or led these meetings in the past. No one to blame. It just fell apart. But we would talk to the people who have organized these different meetings, and then have a network of people that you could share how you've organized them in the past, and then have a committee of 3 people lead that next one, so that you would share the load and be able to lean on the people who've organized it in the past. And so I think the one directly after the meeting, I helped run with someone, Beth, maybe? And then I know there was another one after that, and I think there was another one after that. I think it just started to get fuzzy. So if you need to, I don't think we have that much documentation from the one that was in early 2021, but we can still try to, yeah, it was Beth. We can still try to figure out how to leverage these old meetings, tell you about what worked and what didn't work. Yeah, I don't remember either. So.
Awesome. Wendy has stepped up. Who wants to help Wendy step up?
We need 3 people.
Alex, you're dancing. Does that mean you want it?
No, I'm cheering for Wendy because I already
I'll
did.
help.
All right, we got Patrick and James already too. Woohoo! You guys are awesome. Thank you for stepping up. And as it says in the chat, Tim, Danny, and Mac have also helped out in the past, along with Alex and Andy. So make sure you lean on your resources. All right, so we're going to get that going. Love the idea of the when to meet. That's perfect. So the next thing on our agenda here is a quarterly, monthly journal, or a monthly journal club. Quarterly, monthly. Patrick, did you want to speak about that?
Sure. I think we need more regular interaction between the labs. And I think an easy way to do that would be to have a regular journal club that meets maybe like monthly or maybe even weekly if we can pull it together. We just have a roster of, labs that want to participate, and then we just rotate across them. And maybe we can alternate West Coast, East Coast, and, the folks in the middle can choose which one they are.
A separate thing. We don't want to choose.
Sure. If you want to do every 3rd month, we do the labs in the middle. That's going to be a bit of a heavy load on the people in the middle. Ideally, we would have somebody organizing this, and essentially we need somebody to crack the whip and make sure that the next person has a particular topic chosen at least a week in advance, and maybe make sure that we have people lined up for the next 3 or something like that.
So should we add another column to our table for saying you want to volunteer to host a journal club? Or you want to be added to that mailing list? How do we
really need 1 or 2 people to organize this, so we can just have people volunteer right now. Somebody who's better organized than I am.
I don't know if there's anybody better organized than you are, Patrick. Anybody want to volunteer to host the first, set up the first one, and then we can make it a self-perpetuating thing? Who loves this idea?
And do you all want to start in December or January?
January.
I was gonna say, let's aim for January. Let's everybody who is involved with BioSummit have some breathing room, especially my fellows who are probably as exhausted as I am, and the pod leaders certainly are. Let's get a little breathing room.
And we'll also have to organize a when to meet or a doodle to figure out, which day of the week, which time, because we have 3-hour differences between West Coast and East Coast. Not to mention folks from Hawaii. Anybody from Hawaii here?
Corinne will be.
And actually, that's a really good point. If whoever's note taking, make sure that we are considering including both Hawaii and Alaska, because I feel like those two states get left out of North America discourse way too much for the US, and we should really try to include them and reach out to some maker spaces, maybe in Alaska. We've got a few connections to them, and certainly to the Kupo folks anyways.
That's also why I was suggesting alternating West Coast and East Coast, so we can actually shift the time slot to make it easier.
Yeah, and if you're a newer folk who's like, I don't know where to get started with this, you don't have to start from scratch. There are lists. It's just basically helping organize a time. So it's a when to meet poll. It's not, don't be afraid of it. You can do it. Step up.
Yeah, and the best part is I know Patrick's intention is that a lot of us who run community labs like to offer more content to our members and let our members get to meet more people. And we're all having trouble restarting a bit after COVID because things have wound down a lot for most community labs. So this is a way for us to do something where one community lab lifts it up 1 month, somebody else takes it the next month, and all of our members get to benefit from this. And we'll just see how it goes. It's an ongoing experiment. We'll give it a try. So
it's also, the North America regional, we're historically the slackers in terms of organizing.
Yeah, right? So if you guys could look at the notes for Latin America right now, you should be shamed. Shamed. They had an entire Latin American BioSummit planned down to the funding and the conference picked out speakers that was put off by COVID twice now. Latin America is definitely the most organized. Africa and Europe are almost neck and neck right now for organization. Africa rolled out SynBio Africa and African Centers of Excellence that are getting funded continent-wise for synthetic biology. APAC has the largest challenge for geographic region and number of languages, and they are more together than North America. So there you go. You've been shamed a little, North America. Y'all get your stuff together. I see all the regionals, and you guys are great. You have a lot of people, but step up. Come on, let's get organized. Let's support each other because we get this real independent spirit in the US that we're all going to be little silos onto ourselves.
Yeah, and again, this is just helping organize the first one. I mean, the idea is that it becomes a self-sustaining thing and a lab volunteer. So it's not a huge commitment. It's just getting things going. So yeah, somebody, come on.
I think one of the other things that I would really push for this is just that, there are a lot of these spaces that we see pop up and then disappear. If they could be part of a larger network, that might be a lifeline for a lot of these smaller communities to pop up. And I am not going to commit to this because I've signed up for too much shit, and I'm realizing that. But it's going to really help people start things. So if you have talked earlier about, we really need to push this community and make sure we're helping each other. If you're not stepping up at some point, you're kind of not living out the things you just said. So I don't want to call anyone a hypocrite or anything. I'm just saying, someone should step up for this.
But there will be finger wagging.
No, you know what? I'm going to officially turn my camera back on, and I'm going to mom you all. I am, if y'all haven't sat in meetings with me, and a lot of you have, I love to volunteer people for things. It is the inner mom in me loves to volunteer.
We're going to let Maria pick out who she's going to mom to, but we have one more item on our agenda, which is what does the next BioSummit look like if it moves out of MIT? Governance group and org structures, event hosts. So
actually, before we get onto that, I will volunteer to run the first journal club if somebody else wants to volunteer to help organize the journal club.
See, your job just got easier. Come on, people.
So Patrick will lift up the science side. Who wants to help him organize it and get some outreach, do those when to meets, etc. This is the easier part than the science lift, probably. And Patrick runs a mean science club. That's why I've been running meetups with him for 10 years.
So Heap and Caroline?
would love to be a part of it. I can do some organization of it.
Excellent. All right. So I think I have got Sahib, Caroline, and Andy.
Woohoo! All right, so on to the governance question. So we have 5 minutes left. So why don't we all think on that for a moment while we get our group photo taken, which I don't actually know how to do. So if somebody more technologically competent than me wants to actually take the photo, that would be amazing. But if we could all turn our cameras on for just a moment, if you can, and we'll get a photo taken.
I can take it if no one else is. Okay, so everyone smile. We're just gonna do screenshots. Smile! Yay! One more, hold on, yay! All right, thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, so on to the, what does Bio Summit look like if we move out of MIT? I don't know if anybody wants to give a little context around this.
I wrote that in there, so I will contextualize it. Sorry for the, this is very vague. So we've just been talking in the governance group. So we, as this Bio Summit was coming up, we have been focusing on governance, and last year too, the theme, the umbrella themes have been governance. And sort of talking about what does Bio Summit look like? What is the governance of this movement? Is it just this event, or are we, should we have an organization of some kind, like an NGO that gets set up with like a board and like a more traditional structure? What does that look like? What is equitable? And also, would it be possible or even like feasible, and how, to do a Bio Summit without the backing of the institution? And so that there have been a lot of ideas and no decisions. So I just thought I'd bring it up again. But I will add that yesterday we had a great experience in LA, and we did organize a regional Bio Summit, and we did bring people, and we had speakers at this Bio Summit who were at our event in LA. And it was great. And it was great to like be in person. We missed that, but it was also a wonderful space that Elliot hosted us in. And I think it would be amazing to do that again. And think about, the limitations of the Media Lab and the limitations that MIT sort of, frames around us, and how we might, by going outside and doing something different for next year, it might be cool.
I think the biggest issue that I can see, and I'm looking at Elliot's comments about accessibility and this kind of stuff, I think in terms of in-person meetings, hands down, going to MIT has provided funds for people around the world. And I am not sure that we will stay as a cohesive movement if we don't have funds to bring people, or it will just look very differently. But I think, evaluating what are some of the strengths, having it at MIT as well, and that it's not necessarily a mutually exclusive decision, regionals versus MIT.
Yeah, so many international conferences make sure to organize their meetings in a different country and a different time zone every year. And that's really useful. I mean, we're really missing out to a bunch of people that are having a hard time coming from Asia. I would love to have, a Bio Summit at La Payas. Let's go to Australia one year, But yes, travel funding is going to be important. But then again, we've managed to find travel funding for people to go to MIT. So,
just to add two things, this last year was the first time that I could do the Bio Summit because it was virtual, and I work Fridays and Mondays, and so I could fly out on Saturday and then fly back on Sunday and get to spend a couple hours with everyone. But virtually, this is one of the few ways I can guarantee that I can attend. And I'm sure there are other people who are also 9-to-5ers Monday through Friday, which I have it's not quite, whatever, that doesn't matter. My schedule is weird. But I think also, it is also very strange to hear about the idea of trying to make sure that we are being a little bit more conscious of the natural world around us, and then pushing, let's all fly to Paris with people from 60 different countries, because that's not quite it's not quite cohesive. And I love the idea of doing things more in person. And I think this is one more reason that we should probably be thinking of trying to be more structurally sound regionally, so that we can do things that are a little bit more local than trying to fly around the world and have these connections. But we have to think about a lot of other aspects than we miss being in person. Because I would love to, I've talked to so many of you for so long, and I have no idea like what you're actually like in person. And I would love to, but that creates a lot of problems as well.
One other thing that I spoke at Diybio Africa and will host a panel at Darwin, India. It's like other regions are really getting very, very strong conferences together. And they are, Diybio Africa was able to get actually on ground as well as hybrid models. So, you know, places are going to this dual kind of model, but there's very, very strong conferences being put together in other areas.
So I'm the event producer at Philly Maker Faire, and I was wondering, it's, you know, all of this comes with a price tag. Does anyone have any idea how much MIT is spending? I mean, just on Zoom or servers or physical locations. The last 2 years of being digital is probably very fiscally savvy, but before that, they had the location. But does anyone have any thoughts about that? I know for me to throw a 3-day event for 10,000 people's in $70,000. But that's Philadelphia, and that's, you know, a huge logistic nightmare. But, you know, I'm just looking at like bare bones, you know, an arena alone is going to cost us, you know, the global community a large chunk of money. Does anyone have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so Alex has some insight there. But yeah, as an MIT employee, you basically get the event space for very, very, very cheap. And then, yeah, basically MIT gives it away to their staff.
So I guess we could leverage universities across the world to, you know, sort of like a US Olympics, have them sponsor us. But once again, we still need to, you know, have a dollar amount that, you know, we know the number of attendees. We have a general idea of where the attendees are coming from. Granted, we don't know what the future of the world holds with in-person meetups, but that's a totally different question. Okay, we'll have to do some math.
I would just love to second what Andy was saying about environmental concerns, and just like express that if it does end up being the case that a physical event takes place where a lot of people attend, we should make sure that the type of solidarity and movement building that happens at the event is such that it offsets somewhat the actual carbon emissions from the event. And I'd also just speaking from my own experience, you know, in my 6 years in grad school and now, you know, in an industry job, I've never been able to actually physically attend a community bio like international event or an iGEM jamboree. And, you know, if it hadn't been for, you know, remote accessibility of you know, live streaming and Zoom conferences, things like that, you know, I wouldn't have been able to participate in this event. And like Friendzymes would never have been able to put together an iGEM team like it did this past year. So just a thing to consider.
These are awesome points. And I just want to call out the timing. So we are officially over time, but I think we have some flexibility. This room actually is not being used for anything else for the rest of until plenary. But that being said, we should still all go support the tracks, which start in 27 minutes. But I think we can keep going here for a little bit. I also threw in the chat, and we'll throw in the chat again, the governance survey that they are asking people to fill out. And I think that's a really important tool for helping with this.
And write in Community Biojournal. It got left off of the survey.
Okay, right in.
Community Biojournal. Yeah, give a shout out. There is a workshop that's starting now if any of you guys are interested. But yeah, you guys have the most flexibility because there's nobody taking over this room. So, you know, give it a little bit more time. Don't go past, you know, maybe another 5-10 minutes of discussion, because you want to give people a chance to stretch a little before we start the last push for the afternoon sessions.
Yes. So if you do need to go prep for anything, obviously leave. We all love you. Which is why we took the picture before we all had to bounce. But yeah, want to keep the
Andy and
discussion
I are
going.
out. Bye.
Couple of things that are coming up. We have a collab jam at 6 in global and sharing track. If you have a project that would love to have more collaborators, please put a single slide with contact info in the slides doc that I just pasted in the chat.